Fox 17 News helping you decide who you want to be Nashville's next mayor. For the next hour, the candidates will be answering questions on a number of hot-button issues here on Fox 17. Then Fox 17 will have an hour of bonus coverage at fox17.com. Joining us tonight are 11 candidates hoping to get your vote. Our Fox 17 News Town Hall mayoral debate starts now.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Couch, live on the campus of Trevecca Nazarene University for the Fox 17 News Town Hall mayoral debate. We've got 11 candidates here hoping to get your vote. Pay attention to the questions tonight. We're trying to ask things that would help you determine who you think would be the right candidate. Now, the 11 candidates that you see here are seated in alphabetical order by their last name. Each will get 45 seconds for opening remarks. When it comes to the questions in this portion, the televised portion of the debate, the candidates will get 30 seconds to respond. Erica Lathan, my colleague, is keeping time right down front, and the clock will reflect the time. We'll give you a 10-second warning so you know your time is about up, and then we'll gently remind you your time is up. I'm sorry, we got to move on to the next question. Now, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Want to get started, but I also want to remind our viewing audience, in addition to the hour that we're here on television from 5:30 to 6:30, the entire debate is streaming online at fox17.com. If you've got to get out and about, want to take your phone with you, continue to listen. Of course, it will have a life online after the live portion of the debate is long past. Now, again, this is the portion where our candidates have 45 seconds to say hello, tell people who you are and why they should vote for you. And we're starting in alphabetical order, and we will begin with Natisha Brooks.
Good evening. Natisha Brooks 16 Twitter, retired educator, 33 years, here at Trevecca Nazarene University, where my two children attended. Their professor's name was Dr. Pepper. Yes, his name was really Dr. Pepper. So have a Dr. Pepper on me and sit back and enjoy where you should be, Trevecca Nazarene University. Police officers, teachers, special ed, $70,000 a year. Trade schools matter. Everyone's not going to college. All roads leads to mental health. And most importantly, put our business taxes and our property taxes back to where they were pre-COVID. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. Have a good evening.
You were great at that. Perfect on timing. Fran Bush, you're next.
Yes, hello Nashvillians. My name is Fran Bush. I am a native Nashvillian. I went to all Metro Nashville public schools. I went to the Tennessee State University, and congratulations TSU for participating in CMAs. I am a wife of 31 years with my husband. We have 5 sons, Desmond, Dylan, David, Daniel, and Dalton. And I also have a grandson. His name is Malachi. I have boys coming out of my ears, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I have 3 child care academies in Antioch, Tennessee. I am a community leader, and I was your previous Metro Nashville Public School board member. I'm running to be your next mayor because I was very intentional about getting our kids back into the classroom, and I want to do the same thing for our Metro government. Thank you so much. The leadership. Thank you so much.
Perfect timing. Heidi Campbell.
Thank you so much to Fox 17 for having us, and thank you out there for watching. My name is Heidi Campbell. I am the former mayor of Oak Hill and current state senator representing District 20, which is a big C that surrounds the western side of Nashville. And I never imagined getting involved in politics. I used to be in a rock band, but got involved in politics because I was trying to prevent a commercial development from going up in my neighborhood, which was going to cut into a hill. And it was the beginning of a long process, and I've been defending Nashville in one way or another for a long time, and I look forward to speaking with you this evening and ask you for your vote.
Heidi, thank you. Jim Gingrich.
Tonight we're going to be debating the issues that as a city we've been talking about for much of the last decade. What's changed is that our challenges today are more acute, and our city government is spending 70% more per resident than it spent 10 years ago. You are paying more and getting less. Now, I led thousands of employees and oversaw a multi-billion-dollar budget. And I got to that position because I showed time and again that I get things done. My name's Jim Gingrich, and as your mayor, I promise that together we will start to get things done.
I was certain you were going to say, I'm Jim Gingrich and I approve this message. Sharon Hurt.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Hurd, and I'm asking for your support and your vote. But first, I must wish my husband of 41 years today of a beautiful marriage, and thank you so much for some wonderful years, Lovey. I love you. I am running to serve as your next mayor. I want to be a hope and prosperity for everyone in Nashville. I believe that the secretary and the janitor should be treated with the same respect. Nashville has a tale of two cities, and I live that duality every day. I am the one that knows how to relate to everyone. I promise to fight for you as I have for the past 8 years as a council member at large and a public servant for 25 years. Nothing changes if nothing changes, and I'm the change this city needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Stephanie Johnson.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Johnson, and I'm a 7+ generation Tennessean, community organizer, and politically involved for 15+ years. And I'm here because Music City's out of tune, and it's been out of tune for a very long time. And I have 4 strings I'll be tuning on the instrument of change. That's housing, infrastructure, safety, and schools. Housing, preserve it. Infrastructure, paved roads, sidewalks in every district. Safety, not just intervening but preventing crime. And then schools. We have equity issues and safety issues. And then also we have to lift our literacy and math rates up. So we're 1 out of 95 counties, not 94 out of 95 counties. That's me in a nutshell, tuning Music City, so we're all in harmony.
Thank you. Perfect. Freddie O'Connell.
Thanks, Scott. My name is Freddie O'Connell, and I'm running to be your mayor. I grew up here, and I've been fighting in one way or the other for this city to get better for the past 20 years as a neighborhood leader, nonprofit leader, transit leader, and most recently, Metro Council member. I want you to remember 2 things about me tonight. I am prepared, and my priority is you. When I'm mayor, we will have a simple formula for establishing priorities in the mayor's office. A Nashville for Nashvillians. That means moreville and less Vegas. You'll find out how we're going to do this on our website, readyforfreddie.com. We just released a package of 15 fixes that I'm excited to work on with you starting on day 1. My name is Freddie O'Connell. Excited to earn your vote tonight.
Perfect. Alice Rolli.
Hi, my name is Alice Rolli, and I'm running to serve as our city's 10th mayor to reset the compact between our citizens and our city hall. I'm running because mothers across the county tell me that they're worried that only 1/4 of our kids are reading on grade level. Business owners are concerned with rising crime and more than 200 empty officer positions. And I'm running because all over Nashville people tell me they don't care what your political party is if you cannot fill a pothole. So after 20 years of electing the same people and expecting a different result, it's time to give our city a real change. I'm a Nashville native, I'm a wife of a combat veteran, a business owner, and a former state economic development official for Governor Bill Haslam. I ask for you to look at alicerolli.com to earn your vote.
Thank you. Vivian Wilhoite.
Good evening, Nashville and Davidson County. I'm Vivian Wilhoite. I ask you for your vote, and I need your vote. I am the current assessor of property of Nashville-Davidson County. I came here from Gulfport, Mississippi 40 years ago to attend Tennessee State University. I married Larry Wilhoite, who is a graduate of Pearl High and also Fiskeye. And I have 2 amazing sons, Furious and Leland, and 2 dogs, Bella and Teddy. Bella and Teddy, yes. And so my reason for running for mayor, my reason for running for mayor is because we must put more people before politics, and petty politics at that. It's people who want jobs. It's people who want affordable housing. It is the people who want benefits. And so if you vote for Vivian, we will stop people.
You're going to have to leave it there. Your time is up. Thank you so much. Matt Wiltshire.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening. It's great to be with you all tonight. My name is Matt Wiltshire. I'm a Nashville native and proud graduate of Metro Nashville Public Schools. After college, I spent 15 years in the private sector and then got involved in nonprofits. I was actually the chair of the board of Hands On Nashville during the May 2010 floods. And that inspired me to answer the call to public service. I joined Carl Dean in the mayor's office and worked on economic and community development for 8 years with 3 different mayors. During that time, we were able to add 42,000 jobs for Nashvillians and bring the unemployment rate here down from over 8% to 2%. I then added affordable housing at MDHA, and now I'm asking for your vote to take on the big challenges our city's facing. public education, public safety, and quality of life. Matt Wilshire for mayor. Thank you.
Perfect. Jeff, you've been exceedingly patient. Your time is now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Yarbro.
Thanks, Scott. Good evening. My name's Jeff Yarbro. For the last 2 decades, I've been serving the city as a community leader in our schools, as the chair of the Metropolitan Transit Authority, and for the last 9 years in the Tennessee State Senate. I know the state, I know the city, I know the school system, the challenges that we're facing, and most importantly, I know how to get things done. And that matters because you deserve a mayor who's going to make Nashville work and work for all of us. For me, that means 3 basic things: keeping people safe, educating our children, and getting a handle on growth. Because we know that life in our city is becoming too hard and too expensive, and we have to do the housing and transportation to keep up. I'm Jeff Yarbro, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. All right, time for the first question. I'll remind you that during the televised portion, you've got 30 seconds to answer. The clock will be making the shift there from 45 to 30. You've got the timekeeper right down below you, so keep an eye on that. Natisha Brooks, you get the first bite at the apple on this question as well. Homelessness is a major problem in Nashville. The question is, are you pleased with the Metro response to date? And what would you do differently toward that end if elected?
For homelessness, what we need to do is work with developers, especially for those that are disabled, mentally ill, and our students that are and individuals that are on the spectrum. So I want to work with private investors and developers to help with our homelessness problem and utilize vacant properties to get our homelessness and mentally ill off the streets.
Perfect timing. Fran Bush, same question.
Well, right now we have homeless camps that are still active, and we haven't done enough to help support our homeless community. Right now, we have nonprofits and we have for-profit organizations that we do charge them to help with our homeless population. From day one, if I am chosen to be your next mayor, I'm going to bring those organizations to the table, and it's time to hold more accountability as far as how we're going to move our homeless community forward. And we definitely have to work on mental health, and we have to be more intentional about getting the work done for our homeless community.
Going to have to leave it there. Thank you. Heidi Campbell, same question.
You know, homelessness didn't just happen by accident. It's a symptom of a bigger problem, and that is that we have people who are getting priced out of Nashville. We have mental health issues, and we have issues that spiral to the point where people find themselves in a situation where they're unhoused. So we need to address our mental health issues, and we need to look at public-private partnerships and utilizing public lands so that we can actually provide reasonable housing for Nashvillians.
All right, Jim Gingrich.
There are cities that have successfully tackled homelessness, and they do several things. First, I will have somebody in the office of the mayor that will focus exclusively on the issue of homelessness. Second, we need permanent housing, and we need several thousand units of permanent housing. We can't be doing what we're doing, which is building housing as a city at nearly $300,000 a unit. That needs to be done in the private sector. We need to scale support services, and we need to use data to drive our decisions.
Jim, thank you. Sharon Hurt.
Thank you. I would first make homelessness a priority. I think that has been the problem. And then I would talk to those who are homeless. They're homeless, not helpless or hopeless. And I would do the things it is that they need to do. I do think you have to get to the root of the problem before you get to the fruit of it. And we'll link them to care, link them to the things that they need, and make sure that they have hope and prosperity, the opportunity that they will not be left behind. Thank you.
Perfect. Stephanie Johnson.
So the last numbers I checked, we went from 3,000 to about 1,900 people on the street. So I would say that we're doing something right, but we always can do more. San Antonio, they reduced their homeless population by 80%. And that's because they brought all the services together in one campus. And so in my 6 months, I'll be building collaborations with all the services that support homelessness now, so we can create a 6-month plan to finally have a city that people don't have to sleep on the
Your
street.
time is up. Perfect. Freddie O'Connell.
Scott, I'm not satisfied. That's why I led an effort on the Metro Council to establish our first ever standalone department that is an Office of Homeless Services. Prior to that, I led an effort that gave us the best data we've ever had on our unhoused Nashvillians through the Homeless Management Information System. And now what I want to do is have the Office of Homeless Services focus on a strategic community plan that we had but ignored for the past 4 years, and it's one of the keys to future success in mitigating this issue. And I plan to focus on this as a top priority as mayor. Thanks.
Alice Rolli.
Yeah, I want to applaud the current mayor and council for making Nashville the city that spent the most federal relief money on the issue of homelessness than any other city. I think that's drawing the attention of the urgency of the challenge, but we need to make sure that those dollars are performance managed through, that we are not just housing our homeless, but that we are also bringing the mental health and also additional programming on addiction treatment and job training to help them stay housed.
That's time perfect. Vivian Wilhoite, 30 seconds.
I too like to applaud the current administration, John Cooper and the Metro Council, for their big investment of homelessness and cleaning up and helping homeless people to be able to find housing and get the wraparound services that's needed and necessary. I would invest in the homeless efforts and to ensure that we do not leave any one person behind. It's all about people, and people matter.
Perfect. Matt Wiltshire.
I'm not satisfied with the city's current approach to addressing homelessness. It has been insufficient, it has been chaotic, and it has been reactionary. This is not an issue that came up overnight. We need to have a long-range plan where we pull together in a coordinated way the many great nonprofits and follow best practices nationwide. We haven't been doing that. It doesn't have to be this way. We need to make it a priority, and we need to reclaim our public spaces and make sure that we're serving those who are affected by homelessness.
Perfect timing. Jeff Yarbro.
None of us should be satisfied until we're seeing a lot more progress towards ending chronic homelessness. We know what to do. The question is whether we're going to have the political leadership and political will to get it done. We should be following the example of cities like Houston and Milwaukee and Atlanta that have made a long strides of progress towards ending chronic homelessness by using Housing First well. That's been the right way to invest public dollars and actually make our public spaces safer and keep people housed.
All right, perfect timing. That's one question down, many more to come. We need to take a quick break right here. You're watching the Fox 17 News Town Hall Mayoral Debate live from Trevecca Nazarene University, and we will be right back. I'll take, I don't know, but yeah.
Finally.
How long till this commercial break is over and we're back on TV.
You've been on for 3 minutes. Right now. You've been on for the last 45
50 seconds.
Okay.
Who is that?
My husband.
I've been married for a long time, so I appreciate the fact that maybe I don't communicate well. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Scott Couch, live at Trevecca Nazarene University. Question 2 of our town hall mayoral debate. Fran Bush, you get the first bite at the apple this time. And I mentioned in the break, I said you're going to like this one. Metro schools get the lion's share of every dollar in the Metro budget. Yet our students continue to score below the state average on standardized tests. What do you think the answer is to improve student performance?
Well, you know, that's something that I worked on while I was on the school board, and I will continue to work on making sure that all students are proficient in grade level. One of the things we have to do, and it's no secret, the reason why we're in this situation because we had students out of the schools for a whole entire year. And I was the only board member candidate up here that was very intentional about getting our students back into the classroom. Our teachers, they knew that the virtual space was not helping our students. And this is the reason why we have in third grade retention and things like that that's happening.
Thank you. Heidi Campbell.
So the state of Tennessee is not going to be funding public education fully in this state anytime soon. And Nashville has borne the brunt of that. We are underfunded by $1 billion, even though we produce over half the revenue. And we also have incredible inequity in our schools. We need to triage that inequity by putting community school coordinators in the schools that are struggling the most.
Jim Gingrich.
If you're born poor in Nashville, you're more likely to remain poor than in 80% of the large cities in the United States. And the way to begin to change that is through our education system. I would focus on 3 things. One, we have to start to talk about outcomes, and I will challenge our superintendent and our board, and I will work with them to build a comprehensive 5-year plan to improve outcomes. Second, I will fund that plan. And third, I'm going to hold people accountable, starting with myself, to execute.
Thank you, Jim. Sharon Hurt.
I think that reading is fundamental. In the formative years, our kids learn to read. Thereafter, they read to learn. We're missing that point. I will initiate a reading literacy program to ensure that all first graders are reading on their grade level and beyond. I will make sure that they have a pipeline to prosperity as opposed to a pipeline to prison. We want to restore the families and hope and prosperity.
Stephanie Johnson.
So once I enter office, I've already started this, I'll be visiting over 100+ schools so I can see the issues myself and be able to speak to them. I'll be creating a school initiative out of my office where we will be pumping volunteers into schools to lift our math and literacy rates. And then also each month I'm going to adopt a school so I can bring light to what's going on in that school and support the needs. And so that will allow, so we will not allow our schools to fail. Thank you.
Freddie O'Connell.
Our 2 daughters attend public schools, and they have what is the simplest reform available to them, great teachers in their classrooms. I applaud Mayor Cooper on his decision to make our teachers the best paid in the state of Tennessee, and that's a high water mark we should not only back off of, we should continue to expand. Proud to be a part of a council that increased support staff pay as well. One of the most important programs we have in our most challenging schools is Community Achieves, which we just expanded to dozens more schools. I'm expecting to see the outcome of that start to improve student performance as well, and I think we should all have high expectations for the district.
Alice Rolli.
Yeah, I started my career as a public school teacher because I believe that in education, that is the single most important thing we have to get right as government. It is the single unifying place that can take families from the back of the line to the front. But right now, kids in our city are not getting the maximum wage jobs coming here because we are not holding ourselves and our schools accountable. We've got to follow the parents who are choosing. Our 37 top-rated schools are choice schools. Let parents choose.
Thank you. Vivian Wilhoite.
You asked the question why our students are not excelling. The answer is that every child does not learn the same way. We must support Dr. Battle and the plan that she has to get Nashville students back on track. We will continue to fully fund the schools and to provide her with the resources that she needs, that our teacher needs, in order to be able to help our students be successful. A mayor's job is to fund the budget, but we also need to make sure that we are making the system be accountable.
Matt Wiltshire.
So I'm a proud graduate of Metro Nashville Public School. My wife, Chrissy, and I, our 5 older kids, each attended Metro Nashville Public Schools, and our daughter will start there in August. The reality, Scott, is that the funding going from Metro's budget to public education has actually fallen from 42% of the budget several years ago to just 37%. The reality is we are asking our teachers to solve all of society's problems, and we're not giving them the support and the students the services that they need to solve that. It's much longer than 30 seconds, but I hope we get to it later.
Sure. Jeff Yarbro.
As the parent of a rising 2nd grader and 9th grader in Metro schools, nothing matters more to me than getting this right. And I think if we're being honest, we know that we're not doing right by every child in our city, and none of us should rest until we do. You can't be a great public school city unless you're making it a great place to be a public school teacher. And we are raising salaries, but teachers still have trouble living here, affording to live here. We also have to do a lot better job at early childhood education so that we're starting earlier and students are getting further ahead.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
As the only teacher on this stage of 33 years, let's make history together. Send a teacher to the office of mayor. I'm #1 on the ballot, so you can't miss us. It's about the 3rd grade retention. Everyone learns differently. We should not take one test that is made from another state to assess our students here in Tennessee. I'd like to work with the Tennessee legislature to find different measures other than one test to determine whether students are retained or whether they move forward to the next grade level.
All right. Third question, Heidi Campbell, you get this first opportunity. The lack of affordable housing may be Nashville's most pressing issue. Aside from committing continuing dollars to the Barnes Fund, which this administration has $30 million in the budget for, what will you do as mayor to help create places where people who work here can afford to live here? Heidi Campbell.
It's a great question, and it seems to be the central question of this race. I was talking to a hotel owner the other day who was telling me that business is great, but he can't afford to keep his rooms clean because people who clean rooms can't afford to live here. People are getting priced out of Nashville. And we need to look at public-private partnerships, and we need to really encourage corporations that come here to invest in affordable housing and to purchase land so that they can build affordable housing.
Perfect. Jim Gingrich.
It is unacceptable that our teachers and police officers and other Metro workers can't afford to live in the city that they serve. You need to do 3 things. You mentioned, Scott, that we have to properly fund the Barnes Fund, for sure. We also have an inventory of land that should be discussed as to whether or not that can be used, city-owned land that can be used for affordable housing. But this is an issue we have studied for decades, and we need to take action, and that means getting the private sector much more involved in building affordable housing.
Jim, thank you. Sharon Hurt.
You know, I want to focus on the people and make sure that they have gainfully employment so they can afford to live wherever they want to live. There is going to be an economic tsunami coming to this city in the next 10 years, and I want us to be prepared. I want every person to be prepared to take advantage of that. I'm going to be the mayor to make sure that the equity, the economic equity, reach every block, every community, and every person so we all can thrive.
Stephanie Johnson.
So we have a serious issue where we're not preserving our affordable housing stock, and so I'll be putting a position in that's director of preservation, and they will go out and they will speak with the community. They will build relationships with affordable housing that's already in place, and will implement a scale that shows how much housing stock we have in in place right now, and to make sure we don't go down and lose it, and then diversify who we're giving our barns funds to.
Have to leave it there. Thank you. Freddie O'Connell.
We have a local housing authority, but they haven't always been a terrific partner with Metro. And one of the things we need to do is make sure we streamline the process to allow our housing authority to build more housing. That means infrastructure streamlining. That also means permitting streamlining. We're going to do that with an overhauled approach to development services. We're also going to use the inventory that I've worked on council to help complete to make sure we know what public land can be built on and where it can be worked on with private partners. And finally, I will say, transit is a form of affordable housing. Making this city more accessible to people and lowering their cost of transportation is a big deal.
Thank you. Alice Rolli.
Yeah, so we made a lot of our most affordable housing less affordable when we raised taxes. So first, I've pledged to not do that. Secondly, we've got to get government to act in a more customer-focused way so that we are not slowing down and impeding the progress of building and bringing online more housing stock and more diverse types of housing stock. And so working on those two fronts is a first start.
Well, let's just go with what's working. Let's start there. Let's continue to invest in the Barnes Fund. It's been working. This administration has provided the investment larger than any other administration, and I will continue to do that. So let's start there. The second thing we need to do is let people know about programs like tax freeze and tax relief that will help them to be able to stay in their homes. We're so glad that that amount of income has been raised so more people can qualify. And let's look at the metro properties that are vacant and see how we can build affordable housing. Let's just make all that happen.
Thank you. Matt Wiltshire.
So 4 years ago, I left my job in the mayor's office, a job I loved, to work on affordable housing. I moved over to MDHA, the housing authority, and in just 3 years, we were able to build more than 4,000 units of affordable housing, both at MDHA properties and through public-private partnerships. Now, there's some great ideas that have been articulated, a number of which have already been done. What you have to ask yourself is, who's the person who can get things done? I have a track record of having done that, and I'm asking for your help to make it happen in Nashville.
Jeff Yarbro.
Here's the problem with what we've been doing. We've been losing affordable housing faster than we've been building it. The next mayor has to do two things to address these deficiencies. First, we have to do a much better job of preserving affordability in the neighborhoods where it is so that people aren't being priced out of the communities that they help build. Second, we have to be far more ambitious here. We are facing a deficiency of up to 40,000 units, and we have to act much more boldly to solve that problem.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
Shout out to the Trevecca Towers. My late mother-in-law, Jane Ransom, used to live in the first tower. We need to talk about seniors and the disabled and special needs. Make sure that affordable housing is also income-based housing. We can put the two together and make things happen. Also, the best person to get things done is a teacher. Teachers and police officers, $70,000 a year, and also a living stipend to live in the city that you protect, serve every day for us citizens here in Davidson County.
Thank you. Fran Bush.
Yes, we're 8 years behind the game, right? I'm an HOA president. I have been in the neighborhoods. I know communities. I know growth. I know how to build relationships. And that's the problem with what's happening with affordable housing. If we would have tackled this 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation. What happens all the time, we have this tumbleweed effect that happens in our city, and nothing is being done. I'm not about political jargon. I'm about getting the work done, and I know how to do it, being an HOA president, working with builders and developers to get it done. And that's making sure that neighborhoods are growing.
Thank you. We're going to have to leave it there. And we're also going to have to, at this juncture, take another quick time out. You're watching the Fox 17 News Mayoral Town Hall debate live from Trevecca Nazarene University, and all of these candidates will be right back.
She answered it first.
There's a producer back at the office who's great at his job, just reminding me how much time, reminding me that Jim gets a question first. I'd rather be told twice than, have a brain fade in the middle of things like, my goodness, now whose turn is it?
I'm liking this 30 seconds now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, yeah. It's just time to, be.
Okay. All righty. They just gave me a camera assignment when we're starting out. So we'll welcome back and ask the question. Welcome back, everybody. Scott Couch live at Trevecca Nazarene University for the Fox 17 News Mayoral Town Hall. Jim Gingrich gets the first bite at this question, but I'll ask it to you all. This spring, we saw the state legislature take control of several Nashville entities, including the Metro Airport Authority Board and the Sports Authority Board. Now this after city leaders in Nashville decided not to bid on hosting the Republican National Convention. Jim, what's your opinion of that decision? What will you do as mayor to improve the relationship between the governor and the legislature in the city of Nashville and the mayor's office?
First, I think we should be a welcoming city. Second, we absolutely have to improve the relationship we have with the state. In part, that is just investing in that relationship, but I think it goes beyond that. As mayor, I am committed to improving the relationship that we have with our surrounding counties. If we're going to tackle regional transit and other issues, that needs to happen. But it's more than that. Nashville mayor is the person who should convene mayors across the state because we share common issues like affordable housing.
Going to have to leave it there, sir. Sharon Hurt.
So the RNC is not the reason why we're seeing the things that are happening. It's a ground sweep across this country with the supermajority states. What we're going to have to do is sit down and communicate. We're going to have to challenge the state. Nashville is the economic engine for the state of Tennessee, and we need to speak very candidly with them, stand for what it is that our people have fought for, they have voted for, but we also need to find common ground and work together.
Stephanie Johnson.
So we can't change what happened in the past. All we can do is move forward, and we have to move forward with the plan and be proactive in that plan. So I'm creating a state policy team that will referee back and forth between city and state. And so bills coming down the preempt us, we can stop them before we even hear them on the news. And so we're going to create relationships by continuously being at the state and allowing the citizens to be involved by engaging them as well through our state policy team.
Thank you. Freddie O'Connell.
Though I know a lot of people had fun portraying it this way, it's simply not true that the Metro Council prevented the Republican National Convention from coming to Nashville. This was something that was used to justify a lot of overreach, but it isn't how things actually played out. In fact, as the Titans deal was being negotiated, the state used the money that they were contributing to that to take over 6 out of 13 seats on our sports authority. We're going to have to overinvest in relationships. The mayor is going to have to do that personally. I've already started that process on the Metro Council, and I expect to continue as mayor.
Alice Rolli.
Yeah, I think that our voters expect a certain amount of maturity from our elected officials, and every time we have used our city hall to nationalize Nashville's business, only the residents of Nashville have been hurt. In my city hall, we will not get involved in issues that don't have to do with keeping the schools open, the streets safe, and our potholes filled, because doing that is not our job.
Vivian Wilhoite.
Voting against the RNC was not good. Whether it was going to be something that the Republicans was going to do regardless, what we did was poke the bear. What we need to do is do a hard reset, have new blood, and definitely have new conversations and restore our relationship. We've been having RNCs and DNC conventions since we've always been a two-party nation. There was nothing that was different for the RNC to come here. What we did was vote against jobs and opportunities.
Matt Wiltshire.
So Nashville should be a welcoming city and should be a city where civic discourse can happen. The good news is that there's lots of convention business here, so we could submit a proposal on terms and conditions that worked for us. We didn't need to go chase this business, but we also didn't need to pick an unnecessary fight with the state. I have a career of building proactive relationships when I was in the mayor's office of ECD and when I was at MDHA working at the executive level to build relationships with the state, and I will do that as your mayor.
Jeff Yarbro.
The next mayor is not going to face a choice between managing conflict with the state and making up with the state. The next mayor of Nashville is going to have to do both at the same time. And there's no one in this race, and very few people in this city who have as much experience as I do doing either. Over the last 9 years, I've worked in this place. I've stood up for this city when it was under assault, but I've also worked across the aisle to pass over 80 pieces of legislation, bridging division, and focusing on moving Nashville forward together with our allies in the state.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
Don't be mean, let's be meaningful. $1 billion could have been had right here in Davidson County, waiters, waitresses, entertainers, artists. When two people up here on this stage voted against the RNC, they voted against Nashville and its productivity. As Nashville mayor, Republican, Democrat, red, green is the color, money. We could have gone back on our property taxes had you voted to have the RNC convention here in Nashville, Davidson County.
Fran Bush.
Yes, Nashville is an equal playing ground, and it should have always been that way. One of the things that I want the viewers to know, and that's the reason why you should vote me for your next mayor, because you want someone who's very intentional about working with people. It doesn't matter what color or what party line you are in. I was the only board member that Governor Lee called when our kids were out of school. He was equally very concerned about what was happening in our schools. Now, don't get me wrong, we may agree to disagree, but this was one thing that we did agree on. That's the reason why you have to have and build relationships with the state, because it's been important to do that as next mayor.
Thank you. Heidi, you've been very patient. Last candidate to answer this question.
One thing I've heard from people across Nashville is they're tired of fighting, they're tired of divisiveness. I'm the only candidate in this race who has been a mayor and served on the regional mayor's caucus and also served in the state senate. We need both of those relationships to navigate the months ahead, because it's tribal and because it's about relationships. And serving on the mayor's caucus, I know that rural and Republican mayors do not care about the divisive issues, and I know that people in the state legislature also want to work with us.
Perfect. Sharon Hurt is the first candidate to get to answer this question. Recent administrations have delivered big-ticket improvements and amenities to the downtown area. What's your vision to improve the quality of life for people who live outside the downtown core?
I think we're going to have some equity in the way that we spend our money and distribute the money. We've got a economic downfall of funding coming into this city. I think the distribution of it to make sure that all quadrants of of Nashville are receiving the cash and the benefits that's coming into our city. It just has to be equitably distributed. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Johnson.
So when I get into office, I will be visiting over 114 towns that call their home Nashville, so I can see the issues myself in each district. So one of the things is some districts are carrying the burden of affordable housing and some districts are not carrying the burden of affordable housing. And so putting up a scale to see who's carrying their weight is a part of that, and diversifying our housing stock. Also circular transportation, so ensuring that transportation is touching every single district, not just downtown as well.
Thank you. Freddie O'Connell.
As the only candidate on the stage to have voted against the stadium deal, one of my top concerns about it was that we are investing $4 billion of our taxpayer money into a public facility on the East Bank. A good chunk of that is actually going to be infrastructure, and it's going to be imperative that the next mayor do the spending to make the stadium opening in 2027 successful, but it's also going to be imperative that a mayor executing a vision for the East Bank shows every community in the 500 square miles of Nashville how we're also investing in them. We're going to focus on transparency in order to do just that.
Alice Rolli.
Yeah, so our success as a city is not around how many ribbons we can cut and how many new toys we can acquire. It is the success of our children reading. It is the success of our potholes being filled. It is the success of our elderly neighbors being able to walk on a sidewalk to their local library. And so resetting the metrics by which we run our city to be more customer focused and to be focused on the people who actually live here will be my metric.
Vivian.
Nashville is strong, but it hasn't been strong for everyone. Whenever we entertain incentives to bring in big business to grow Nashville, which is the job of the mayor, we must demand, not ask, demand for benefits in return that's going to benefit everyone in this city, everyone in this county, everyone. That's the bottom line. And that's what this government has not been doing enough of. There are some companies that are going to the boards and not giving us anything. Let's change that by voting Vivian for mayor.
Matt Wiltshire.
So downtown is a powerful economic engine for our city. It's 1/2% of the entire acreage of our county and generates 12% of the property taxes and over 25% of the sales taxes. We need to make sure that those dollars are actually being invested in creating the very best public education system in the entire country, making sure that we have safe streets, a fully staffed police force, and making sure we have the infrastructure, transit, sidewalks, to be able to make sure that Nashville remains a livable place. I will do that as your mayor.
Jeff Yarbro.
Right now, people in Nashville feel like growth is happening to us rather than for us. It doesn't really matter what's going on downtown if it takes you an hour and a half to get there and you got to spend an arm and a leg on parking once you're there. And I think while a lot of us enjoy having big league sports teams, we also know that in our communities, we got to see the Little League fields in our neighborhoods get the same level of investment. The next mayor has to invest in the schools, sidewalks, greenways, and parks where people really live their lives.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Natisha Brooks.
As your mayor, let's talk trash. Bordeaux, you will no longer, in my first 100 days, have to worry about speed bumps. We will get your speed bumps to you. Also, why does Bordeaux, North Nashville, have to be the trash dumping facility? Let's move the trash on barges down the river and not put them in our living areas where our residents reside. As your mayor, that is my first thing we're going to do in our first 100 days. Let's talk and move the trash.
Fran Bush.
Yes, one of the things that I want viewers to understand, in order for us to continue to do the things that we do downtown, we have to have police officers that are, we always talk about fully funded, but we want to make sure that they're getting the raises they need because they're working overtime to make sure that it's our CMAs and all the great things that are happening downtown. So we really have to be more intentional about our men and women in uniform because that's where we have to invest more money.
Heidi Campbell.
Are we building a city to visit or a city to live in? This is a question that touches all of the points of my platform. I released a platform policy book on my website today, Building a City to Live In, and I encourage you to go to voteHeidiCampbell.com to look at my thoughts on all of these issues, and please reach out to me. My phone number is on the website. Would love to talk to you about these things. It's a longer than 30-second answer, but I look forward to that conversation.
Thank you. Jim Gingrich.
The reason I spoke out against the deal that was pending for the Titans ownership nearly a year ago now is I didn't think it was the right priority. There's really only one priority, and that shouldn't be to make a billionaire richer. The only priority is the quality of life of the people who live in Nashville. And the reason that so many people are frustrated is that the things that lead to a better quality of life we have been talking about and studying, as I said earlier, for at least a decade, and we are not making the progress we should.
Jim, thank you. Perfect timing. Our time is up for this segment, but we've got many more questions to come. Stay tuned. You're watching Fox 17 News Mayoral Town Hall live from Trevecca Nazarene University, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We are nearing the conclusion of the televised portion of this debate, but I'll let you know that it will continue for another hour and change online at fox17.com. Let's do some closing remarks for the televised portion, and we'll begin with Stephanie Johnson.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As you know, Music City is out of tune, and I want to work to tune it. I've been doing strategic planning and community development for 15 plus years, from human resources, developing boards, building collaborations, and I see us doing the same here in Nashville. A leader has to be able to see beyond the now, and so I want a strategic plan for our city for the future to come.
Perfect. Freddie O'Connell.
Earlier I said I wanted you to remember two things that I'm prepared, and my priority is you. I actually want you to remember another thing, which is my name. Freddie O'Connell. I'm running for mayor, and the 15 fixes I referenced earlier are just the beginning. We're going to focus on investing the power of the mayor's office and the resources of the city in us going forward. We have spent a lot of time developing expensive toys for tourists, and now it's time for us to have sidewalks in our communities, schools we can rely on, and the safety we deserve. As mayor, I'm focused on that because one thing I keep hearing is people are thinking about leaving, and I want you to stay. My name is Freddie O'Connell. I'm running for mayor. I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Alice Rolli.
Thank you. My name is Alice Rolli, and I'm a Nashville native, and I believe that we can love both Nashville and Tennessee. And after 20 years of electing the same people, we can reject the failed recipe that has failed too many cities of higher taxes, higher crime, and failing schools. But it will require a reset back to core principles: literacy, schools being open, and supporting our police and first responders. I ask for you to look at our campaign, Alice Rolli, for mayor of Nashville. Thank you.
Vivian.
I'm Vivian Wilhoite, and I ask you for your vote for mayor of Nashville and Davidson County, voting for a mayor for all of Nashville and Davidson County. As you've heard from my fellow colleagues, they're going to be investing, and I myself, we all saying the same thing. We're going to invest in public health, in public safety. We're going to invest in education, affordable housing. We're going to do all that. But who is going to have the energy to ensure that Nashville stays welcoming? Nashville should be a welcoming city to everyone, whether you're gay, straight, tall, short, black or white, American or wanting to become a citizen. That is the Nashville that we should have. And it's voting for Vivian for mayor. That is the Nashville that you will have.
Thank you. Matt Wiltshire.
Thank you so much for being with us this evening. My name is Matt Wiltshire. I hope you heard tonight that I have the experience in the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector to take on the big challenges that Nashville's facing right now. This is a great city. Nashville is an amazing place. It's amazing because of all of you and the great things that we can do here to take on the big challenges that we're facing. I'm asking for your help and your ideas because I believe that when we focus together, we can have Nashville be the place that has the very best public schools in the country, the safest big city in America, and a really high quality of life. But I need your help in doing that. My name's Matt Wiltshire. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your help to make Nashville the best place it can be. Thank you.
Matt, thank you. Now, at this juncture, I have to speak to our television audience and tell you that we are very nearly out of time for the television portion of this town hall debate. I want to thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Scott Couch, live at Trevecca Nazarene University for the Fox 17 News Mayoral Town Hall. We are finished with commercial breaks. We're speaking only to our online audience. If you guys want to look down that way, Jared's on that camera. That's the camera we are speaking to. We are going to pick up where we left off on the televised portion, and that was with Jeff Yarbro having an opportunity to sell himself and ask for your vote. These are important times, and you have the floor, sir. 45 seconds.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Yarbro, and I'm asking for your vote because you deserve a mayor that you can actually trust to get the job done. For the last hour, we've been having a lot of discussions, and you're going to see even more during this next hour. And that's important to hear from these 11 people about the challenges that we face. But you know the challenges we face. The big question is who's going to actually get the work done for you and move the ball forward on the issues that we're talking about tonight and the issues that aren't even on our radar yet. For the last 9 years, I've been doing this work, bringing people together, finding common ground, bridging divisions, and achieving progress on affordable housing, on transit, on public safety and public education, and that's what I'll continue doing as your next mayor.
Perfect. The time is up, sir. Natisha Brooks. And I don't know that you're still on Jared's camera. Please tell me what camera we're on at this juncture so everybody's not looking at the wrong one. I'd say continue looking out. Do that. Go ahead, Natisha.
Okay. Natisha, our Miss Brooks, the lady with the hat, the teacher. Let's make history together. Send a teacher to the office of mayor. I have been in the private sector of education, the public sector of education, and homeschoolers. You rock too, homeschool section of education. We want to focus on our seniors and our disabled and those that are on the spectrum, that they too are able to live in the city that they have known for many years. Also, we want to focus on our opioid and our fentanyl problem. This is where mental illness leads. We need to make sure that when we're talking about mental illness, we're talking about getting our children out of the system, adoption and foster care, so that they will not be led into human trafficking, which is one of the #1 things of our crime in city.
Thank you. Fran Bush.
Yes, it's Fran Bush again. Native Nashvillian who knows Nashville. It's not about people. Politics is about people. You guys are my priority, and that's how it will always be. When I was on the school board, that's exactly what I did. I did the work for our children and our families. I made sure that parents had a voice. I made sure that teachers got the highest pay raises, and yes, they do deserve more. I made sure bus drivers and our support staff got more money than they've ever had before because it was the right thing to do. I made sure that our budget aligned with our school services. That's the kind of mayor you want. I want to take the education leadership and that what I put into our education room and put it right back into our metro government. We need someone that's intentional, who knows how to get the work done, and that's what I know how to do, and that's what I can do for our city. Thank you.
Heidi Campbell.
I've been serving our city in one capacity or another for many years, and one thing that I've learned is that campaign promises and plans have very little to do with the actual job. You never know what you're going to wake up to on any given morning as a mayor. But leadership is about meeting the moment. It's about meeting people where they are, not having all the answers, but knowing where to find them. It's about making the world a better place for the people that we serve. That is what I have always done, and that is my promise to you, that is what I will do as your mayor. My name is Heidi Campbell. VoteHeidiCampbell.com is my website. I just released a policy book. Would love to share it with you. My phone number is 615-438-6338.
All right, perfect. Jim Gingrich, and I'll tell you guys now that we're sort of offline, generally speaking, when we're in a section like this where we're speaking, it'll be on a wide shot, and then as you begin to answer, I'm sure one of the other cameras will take you tight. So just do your thing, and don't worry, we will be getting you on camera. We're lucky we've got 4 of them in here. And let's see, Jim, you are up. Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Gingrich. You know, we just spent the last hour touching on issues like affordability, as well as homelessness and education. These are issues we've talked about for a long time. And what's happened is we've proven that we're really good at studying a problem, not so good at actually getting things done. So take something like affordability. The situation today is more severe and worse than it was a decade ago. We do need to start to get things done in this city. Now, I have a track record of building a career where I ended up overseeing thousands of employees in a multi-billion-dollar budget, and that's because I showed I could make tough decisions and I could get things done. That's what we need to start doing in Nashville.
Perfect. Sharon Hurt.
Thank you so very much for having me here. I have been working in the trenches for ordinary people. I will continue to do that and continue to fight. I am the common sense mayor. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do what it takes in order for every person in this city to benefit from the wealth and the greatness that this city has to offer. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about the promises I make. I'm telling you what it is that I have done, and I'm going to continue to do. I am a deliverer. I have the resume, and I also have the heart that it takes to make sure that we care for all people.
Perfect. And now we're going to go back to questioning, and Freddie O'Connell, you get the first bite at this question. Last week's Metro Council meeting included a number of city employees complaining about raises that do not match the cost of living. Nashville's Fraternal Order of Police sent council members a study showing city leaders a budget of spending $22 million fewer dollars for employee pay at a time when recruitment and retention continues to be an issue. Do you think employee pay is an issue? And if you do, what's your commitment to address it?
Yeah, employee pay is one of the most important things a government has as a hedge against rising cost of living. As we try to recruit first responders, teachers for our schools, support staff in all roles, I'm proud to be a part of a Metro Council that every single year the mayor has recommended a budget less than what the Civil Service Commission recommends. We've gone in and basically tried to do better by public employees, including some of the lowest paid employees in Metro Nashville. I'm working with the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee right now to try to find a larger cost of living adjustment than the mayor is recommending. The same is true for substitute teacher pay. It is very challenging to get a substitute teacher into a classroom at $12 an hour. I'm committed to this and hope to start the budget in the right place when I am mayor.
Thank you. Alice Rolli.
Yeah, so I think one of the complexities of managing the city is that our Employee Benefit Board and our Civil Service Commission don't always talk to both the budget office or the head of the department in terms of making sure that the promises that are being made are actually flowing through to the paychecks of the people being told that they are giving those raises. So I think that we've got some cleanup to do in terms of how we manage that process and how we are more transparent about it. I do believe, and we have done this when I worked for Governor Haslam, that it is important for us to reward and pay great people who are doing hard jobs, but also to look at places within the city government that there are jobs that no longer serve our citizens.
Thank you. Vivian Wilhoite.
I would do exactly what I've been doing. As the assessor of property of Nashville and Davidson County and overseeing a budget of $8.1 million, and have 85 amazing professional staffers. When I went into office in 2016, entry level was at $32,000 to $33,000. Wow, how in the world was anyone going to be able to support their family on that? I promised them they may not like what they do, but they will not hate coming to work. And so what I did was work on bringing up entry level up to now $47,000 and hope to have it by $50,000 by the end of the year. What I'm saying to you is that we don't have to have a board to tell us what are the needs. We're going to need to take a look at what people are asking for and meet them where they are.
Thank you. Matt Wiltshire.
Metro employees provide valuable services for our city. Certainly the first responders and teachers, but across the departments, we need to have a customer-focused, forward-facing public workforce that serves the city. And they should be compensated fairly for the work that they do. It is absolutely imperative that we have a city that recognizes the hard work that people do serving those who live here. And to do that, we need to make sure that we're attracting the best and the brightest people. That's true in any business, and it's certainly true in government service. We should have a well-trained, motivated workforce, and as your mayor, I will make sure that we do that.
Jeff Yarbro.
When the salary increases don't keep up with inflation, in real terms, that's a pay cut. And we have not been doing right by our public sector workers for a long time. And I think we're starting to catch up, But what we can't do is get behind again. You can't kick the can down the road in tough budget years and not treat your people right, because what happens is we end up being penny wise, pound foolish, and everyone pays the price. It's bad for everyone when we have trouble filling the positions we need in our metro schools, in our police force, in our fire department. We don't want those people to be overworked. We want them to be well compensated so that they are secure here, so that we don't end up spending more and getting less.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
So when I'm looking for someone to vote for, I need you to be specific. Sometimes people don't have time to read. Paraprofessionals, sanitation workers, bus drivers, WeGo bus drivers, our janitors, $25 to $30 an hour starting pay. Be very specific of how they can live in a city that they want to reside in. So as your mayor, we're going to look at those budgets and work with the state legislature, not fight with the state legislature, because we need them to pass the money to us so that we can pass the money to the workers that serve us in the capacity and what we live here in Nashville.
Fran.
So that's what I did when I was on the board, Metro Nashville Public School Board, is that we did a study. So Mayor Cooper did a study, which was something that we really needed for our teachers, support staff, bus drivers, etc., because we were not coming up with the proper pay for our staff. And doing so, it really opened our eyes as far as neighboring cities, as far as their education system and how we were paying our teachers, bus drivers, support staff. And that study was very important. And the reason why that study was very important, that was one of the main reasons why we got the raises for our teachers, support staff, etc. And we need to do the same thing for our city government workers. We have to do that in order to make sure that we're being comparable and making sure that everyone gets the equal pay that they deserve in order to live here and work here. That's exactly what we have to do.
Thank you. Heidi.
As a Vanderbilt MBA, a business owner, a former mayor, and frankly a mom, I don't think we talk enough about opportunity costs. And this really is about opportunity costs. It's not a simple transactional situation. For example, in our permitting process, we have a lot of developers that would really like to build affordable housing, but our permitting process is so onerous because we have bottlenecks because we are not paying our building and lighting inspectors a reasonable and competitive wage. These kinds of opportunity costs end up costing us way, way more in the long run. We have to pay people a competitive wage or we're never going to be able to get out of a lot of the problems that we're facing.
Jim Gingrich.
So we're a big city. We have big city challenges. And if we're going to step up to those, we really do need a city government that is more effective and more efficient than what we're doing today. As I mentioned earlier, we're spending 70% more per resident than we were spending 10 years ago. Now that isn't because people aren't working hard. We have a morale problem in Metro, a piece of which is pay. You have to, in any organization, pay competitively and fairly. However, we cannot continue to do the things the way we have always done. We need to modernize the way we run Metro. And I'm the only person on this stage that has the experience of having done that, and I will bring that to Metro.
Thank you. Sharon Hurt.
So Tennessee State University taught me that proper planning prevents poor performance. That's why I'm so glad that I voted for the stadium, because with the vision, there's going to be an economic tsunami coming into this city over the next 10 years, and we need to prepare to receive it. People are moving here every day because they see all of the great things that are happening. That needs to be spread amongst every Nashvillian. We want to make sure that hope and prosperity reach every person, every block, and every community. We've got to build our workforce. We've got to use it. I'm so glad that Nashville is moving in direction where they're bringing more funds into this city.
Last but not least, Stephanie Johnson.
So for the last 8 years, I've been watching and attending city council meetings, and I've stood in the line and I've asked council to raise pay for the people that serve us. It's really sad that people have to come and beg for scraps in a city that's very prosperous. And so, yes, we will be raising their pay because we as a city have to set the standard for the entire city. It's out of tune and it's time to tune it up.
Perfect. Next question, and Alice Rolli will get the first opportunity. And I actually thought about you when I wrote this. I've read things about your platform as well as the other candidates. There can be no argument that national traffic is bad and getting worse. Metro has a Department of Transportation now. How will you use that office and other assets locally and regionally to address the mess that is Nashville traffic on a daily basis?
Great question. Thank you. And I did enjoy recently meeting with our NDOT director, and I have been, and I think our citizens can be proud to see that we have nearly doubled the rate of filling potholes and dealing with some of these backlog of challenges that have plagued us for a while. But the single most important issue around transit has been defined and articulated as the next mayor needing to help quarterback getting dedicated transit funding. For everything that people talk about the state taking away, the state gave us the ability to create a dedicated transit funding mechanism. We have a plan. We need to go and allow our taxpayers to weigh in on that plan so that we can get that dedicated transit funding and that we are no longer leaving federal and state dollars unused.
Vivian, you've been here since college. You've seen it become a small town to what we now enjoy. What do you think?
Well, I think first we need to look at some of the low-hanging fruit that we have available to us. Changing some of the lightings in reference to our traffic light to ensure that we have flowability and easeability as we go through the city. Ensuring that whenever traffic lights are out, we need to have the technology to let us know that those traffic lights are out so that it does not provide backup anywhere. And then, of course, working with the state, when you're speaking of metro, when you're speaking of transit, it's more than just Nashville. It is a regional issue. It's going to require all of us. I don't believe that Nashville-Davidson County should be the only one that's paying for transit. It is a regional issue, and we all need to play our part. So looking at the low-hanging fruit is the beginning, and I have mentioned already about some of those low-hanging fruits and would love to share more.
Thank you. Matt Wiltshire.
So I agree with what Assessor Wilhoite was just saying. There's some operational improvements that we can make to improve the efficiency of our existing road infrastructure, including having a traffic network operations center, which should open later this year. And then we're going to need to invest in some additional technology for light signals to make sure that we can actually fully utilize that center. That will help speed the throughput for the existing roadway. We also need to invest in transit. And it's too short in 45 seconds, but there will be dedicated lane, bus rapid transit from the airport to downtown right outside of Trevecca when I am mayor. And we'll do that and build affordable housing at transit stops so that folks who work downtown or at the airport can get to work without paying $50 for parking. The federal government will help pay for it.
Jeff Yarbro.
Nashville transportation's a mess. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to ride a bus, drive a car, walk, bike, it is just a mess, and the next mayor has to make it a huge priority. There are several things we have to do. First, I've visited other cities that manage to build buildings without requiring lane closures or sidewalk closures. We can do that too in Nashville. We have to do a better job of actually dealing with potholes and dealing with the signalization so that it's just easier to drive around. But if we're not going to really get to the essence of this problem unless we take to the next step in transit. One of the first things I did in the legislature was work with Governor Haslam on getting dedicated funding, and I've worked with this administration. The next mayor is going to have to lead the way and get us to the next step on transit.
Natisha Brooks.
Transit didn't pass the first time because voters did not understand what was going on of how it was going to get paid for. Just like with the Titan Stadium, it was unconstitutional. You should have put that to a vote of whether we wanted the Titan Stadium or not. For transit, how are we going to pay for it? 3 cents hospitality tax, take 1 cent of it to pay for monorail. Let's go up. Not level. Monorail from downtown to the airport, monorail from Murfreesboro to the airport, along with the rapid bus route from Murfreesboro to the airport back. So how do we pay for it? $760 million? They're not getting paid for the potholes. They're not being filled. Let's put it towards transit.
Fran Bush.
So Nashvillians are getting tired of candidates talking about, from downtown to airport to Murfreesboro to airport and airport to downtown. That's the reason why this happened in 2018, because neighbors did not feel that they were part of the equation. It takes transit from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood. It doesn't matter what your zip code is or what's in your pocketbook or in your wallet. That's the reason why you need a mayor like me who understands how intentional it is to make sure that planning transit is on day one. That means that I'll bring neighborhoods together, I'll bring people together, and I will have a plan. That's one thing about Bush. That's one thing about me. When you go to the polls, I call myself the PEP factor. I will have a plan, I'll execute, and progress will be made. Thank you.
Heidi Campbell on traffic.
A world-class city like Nashville deserves a world-class transit system. We are the second most automotive-dependent city in the entire country, and we are way behind on doing something about that. We need bold vision, and we also need to stay the course. WeGo is doing a really good job, but we need to look at bigger transit options like moving Radnor Yards to Wilson County so that we can use our internal train lines for maybe not trains, but multimodal connectivity or buses. We have to look at that, and we also need to make sure that we're continuing to get the multimodal connectivity, because you can't use transit if you can't get to it.
Jim Gingrich, what should we do about traffic?
Well, transportation is one of a long list of issues that as a city we've done a great job studying, but not such a great job dealing with. There's three things I would focus on. First, last year we had 49 pedestrian deaths. That is unacceptable. We need to fix dangerous intersections. We need to accelerate the rate we're doing traffic calming, get sidewalks in, and the like. Second, we do need to get the basics right. That's everything from road condition to rapid transit, higher frequency of buses on just the higher volume routes. Those are things we can do. And lastly, 90% of our population growth is in the surrounding counties in the past 5 years. We have to have a regional transit solution.
Sharon?
That's why I'm glad we have the East Bank development, because there is a connectivity for our regional transportation. But let me be clear, transit and traffic congestion are two separate things. I do know that we have to deal with the regional transportation, and this East Bank development plan and what they have for transportation is going to be addressed there. But with the traffic congestion, right now, because the schools are out, you don't see quite as much congestion and traffic on the roads. So I think we have to address that. I have a national organization that specializes in traffic congestion that's going to help us get to the root of it so we can get to the fruit of it. It is separate, and we will find a solution.
Stephanie Johnson.
So we could go many different ways with this. I believe one of our biggest issues is congestion downtown when events are in town. And so I would love to see an arts, business, and entertainment committee created where an event over a certain amount will have a dedicated plan for transportation. And so whether that's paying for the star, satellite locations, so we're not congesting the streets for the people that live here. We also can think about circular transportation, and we have circular transportation downtown. How can we do the same thing in every district so people don't have to transition out to come inside of their district? And so, yeah.
Freddie, you've been very patient. You get the last bite at the apple here.
Well, I'm sure a lot of you, like me, have been stuck at some point behind a train in Nashville. One of the worst bottlenecks is coming out of downtown, actually, on 4th Avenue South. And if you've ever been stuck behind a train on the way to a soccer game, it's even worse. One of the most important things the next mayor is going to do is preside over the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act allocation, federal money that's coming to Nashville to help us fix our infrastructure. We're going to fix rail crossings. We're also going to fix the most dangerous intersections in the city to allow traffic to flow safely without killing pedestrians. Last year was the most dangerous year on record in Nashville for walking around the city. We also, Mayor Cooper, one of the best things he did was get a traffic management system off the ground to let us use technology to allow traffic to flow more smoothly. And yes, we do need a better transit system. I'm fighting in the budget right now for $2.6 million to allow crosstown routes to initiate.
Perfect. And Vivian, you get the first bite at the question coming up. The question is, it has become common for cities like Nashville to offer business incentives, if you would, to those interested in relocating here. How would your administration respond to such requests expectations?
Well, as you know, Scott, one of the responsibilities of the mayor is to grow the city. In order for us to be able to provide the services in our neighborhoods, we have to grow the city business-wise. So it's very important that we be able to entertain those type of contracts or agreements or what have you, but the bottom line is it's got to be about the incentives. How are the incentives, what are the incentives that are going to benefit all of Davidson County? Not just a few of us, but the majority of us. And that is where the rubber meets the road. And I, as mayor, will make demands on businesses when they come here because they want to be here. But guess what? In exchange, you have to benefit the people.
No free lunch. Matt Wiltshire.
Thank you.
So there are different tools that are appropriate for different times. As you know, Scott, when I started in the mayor's office, the unemployment rate in Nashville was over 8%. Families were struggling. People were struggling. And we made investments to help our economy grow so that people could get jobs to build their lives and build their families. Carl Dean always said, there is no government program as good as helping somebody get a job. And we were able to do that for 42,000 Nashvillians. Now, when the unemployment's at 2%, you don't need to pour gasoline on the fire. It's important to make sure that you're taking appropriate actions to help Nashvillians regardless of the economic conditions, and those can change from time to time. You need a mayor who can best adjust to the times that they're in.
Jeff Yarbro.
I think the first thing is we need to do a much better job of building trust with the people of Nashville to the extent that there are incentive packages that are being used, and we know that there hasn't been enough transparency and there hasn't been enough trust built. One of the things that I try to do in the legislature, that I actually achieved in the legislature, is getting transparency so that we could see the impact of those incentives when they're offered. But I think at the city level, the best way to do this is to invest in ourselves. Right now, we actually need to think long and hard about what kind of incentives we want to set. I want an administration that's going to focus just as much on opening a new child care center as a new hotel. We have priorities that have been advanced, and the next mayor's got to catch up on those things that really matter to the way people live their lives.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
Back to transit. For neighborhoods that think that we are leaving you out, we're looking at the high-density areas first, which is Murfreesboro, and then downtown to the airport. So we're not leaving any other areas out as far as investing in you as far as transit. Now to the next question. For companies that come here, we want to make sure that you hire within our county. The issue is companies come here and they bring their workers here and squeeze us out. So as mayor, an incentive would be hire at least 50% here from Davidson County, Nashville, and then we can talk business, and then I need you to write a check to help our seniors and our disabled for the parking that they can't afford downtown. Give us incentives on parking and we can do business together.
Thank you. Fran Bush.
Yes, I'm not interested in incentivizing any outside companies. Our outside companies are millionaires, billionaires. I'm interested in incentivizing Nashvillians. I am interested in incentivizing our schools and making sure our crime and safety is taken care of, making sure our men and women in uniform get the pay raises they need in order to continue to take care of our city. I'm not interested in incentivizing outside sources until we take care of home. It is important that that is one of the things that Nashvillians understand in their next mayor, like me, is that I will make sure that we are taken care of. People are taken care of. It's not about politics. It's about taking care of the people who live and work here, and that will be my priority. Thank you.
Heidi Campbell.
I think the real issue is that we need to know our worth. A lot of deals were made where we gave tax abatements and deals to people that were not necessary, and because of that, Nashvillians are paying the price. And so we need to, as we go forward, make sure that we're focusing on investments that help Nashvillians and not out-of-town investors. And that means incentivizing them to invest in Nashville, whether that's investing in childcare, whether that's investing in housing, but investing in Nashville so that they have skin in the game. And so incentives aren't always bad, but we need to make sure that we're doing it for the benefit of Nashvillians.
Jim, interested to hear your thoughts.
So let's step back and think about what we're seeking to accomplish. We're actually trying to make life better for the people who live here and create opportunity. Investing in our education system is a start. Technical education in high school, summer jobs for kids, workforce development. Those are all economic development engines because at the end of the day, talent is what drives economic growth. The other piece of this is, the other thing that is a job engine is small business. It is the case in every city. So what are we doing as a city to make sure, as a small business owner, that you can grow your business? We're going to focus on that. There will be a direct line into my office for anybody who has a small business.
Sharon Hurt.
I agree 100%. It is about workforce development and contracts. We've got to make sure that we put our people to work, gainfully employed, making good salaries in order for them to be able to live in this city. Too many are voting with their feet. But I also know that we do have some policies in place, but the policies have to be enforced. Make sure that those incentives are being fulfilled, that they are hiring a certain number of people. When I had my workforce development program, I found that there was not enough workforce available, so we had to have training. And we do have to go outside of the county to get people, so that's why I put 25% in those contracts and an equal business opportunity legislation that passed unanimously.
Stephanie Johnson.
So no new incentives on businesses that want to come here. I'm more interested in supporting businesses that have served this community for 30 to 60 years, incentivizing them to keep their doors open. We went through COVID and we lost so many of our longtime businesses, and that should have never happened. We need to set up a database where we know what businesses are in the community that have been here for 30 plus years and continuously support them. So no new incentives, only for our longtime Nashvillians.
Freddie O'Connell.
The best incentive that the next mayor of Nashville can offer any of us is making it easier for working families to stay here. And that means investing in things like high quality pre-K and moving in the direction of universal aftercare at every metro school. We're going to have an office of opportunity when I'm mayor, because we do need to think strategically about how our economy and our workforce respond to changes, like more people working from home, and reinvesting in young people that are looking not just for a summer job, but a lifetime of opportunity created by the networks that not every Nashvillian is lucky enough to have access to. This is how we're going to grow an economy for the 21st century. We're going to make good use of technology, but we're going to make sure that our education in public schools is training the next workforce so that every student who starts in pre-K can graduate from a Trevecca or a Fisk.
Thank you. Alice Rolli.
Yeah, so I would say that I did my job in economic development, leading the strategy for the state. The region has prospered tremendously. And most companies relocating here are doing it for our favorable tax environment. But where do they stay, and why do they stay? And what have we lost in Nashville? We've erased nearly all of the economic gains created through our city's tax policy, and today, the second highest expenditure for our city is on servicing our debt. As a business owner who's grown companies, I've never gone to the government to help me create a job. We've created the jobs and kept the jobs when we are smart about our schools, our tax policy, and our police force.
Perfect. Next question, and Matt Wiltshire will have the first opportunity to answer. The downtown entertainment district in Nashville, as you mentioned, you shared some numbers, huge economic engine, not only for the city but the state. Metro Police recently dedicated a special team of officers to be down there from 4 p.m. until midnight, Thursday through Sunday, the big busy times. We know that we've had stories recently where patrons have been drugged and assaulted, and we know for a fact that drug sales have happened downtown. The mayor has, given voice to that particular problem, right on that thing. Is enough being done to protect our citizens and our guests and the reputation of our city?
Yeah, this is really important to make sure that the city, downtown, doesn't sort of consume itself I think the biggest risk is when you have a place that people want to visit, that things can get out of control. And it's a matter of managing it. And actually the folks who own establishments down in the entertainment district, many of them are those who are speaking most loudly about the need to take care and nurture the place that we have. When I was growing up, going to Hume-Fogg High School, there was nothing going on downtown. It was a very different place. But there is an imbalance today between the live, the work, and the play, and we need to bring that into balance to have responsible policies to make sure that Nashville continues to be a great place to live, as well as a great place to visit for folks from around the country.
All right, Jeff Yarbro.
I don't think there's any question but that downtown is starting to feel more and more out of control. And I think that we have to get a handle on it in order to ensure that not just the tourist industry thrives, but that our residents can actually enjoy downtown. We've invested in it, and our residents deserve to be part of the enjoyment of that area. And right now, we haven't seen that. That's one of the reasons that over the last several years, I've worked with people in the tourist sector and with the city to advance legislation to allow us to regulate those party buses. I actually passed a tax that adds a little bit more to every beer on Broadway to pay for the cleanliness and safety that happens downtown, and that's the type of work that we have to be doing.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
So back to the business incentives. This is where businesses, Tennessee, the business-friendly state, we can be friendly, they can be friendly to us, incentives, by investing in a pipeline of 18-year-olds going into the police force or the police academy. If 18-year-olds can hold a gun and serve our country, they can start early and be in the police academy. We are 240 plus officers short. So that's an incentive that we could use for businesses that come here to the Metro Nashville, Davidson County. Also back to the business incentives. If they want to come here, invest in the TIF program that helps seniors and the disabled and special needs for housing.
Fran Bush.
Yes, going back to my point as far as incentivizing outsourced or outside companies, we did do one, which was, I'll take this time and I think everybody remember. So tech giant Oracle promised millions from taxpayers, apparently laying off workers. To my point, we can incentivize, but it doesn't guarantee that taxpayers are going to get what we're asking them to do if we do that. Going back as far as downtown, as far as crime, it goes back to our men and women in uniform. We have got to invest in our men and women in uniform so that we can have a safer city. But not only just having a safer city downtown, we want to have a safer city overall. Crime is going up in our city over 50%, and we need to have a plan to address that. If I'm your next mayor, I know how to do that, and I will have a plan on addressing crime within the ages of 14 and 26 years old. Thank you so much.
Heidi Campbell.
The number one job of a mayor is to keep the public safe. And so with popularity and prosperity comes responsibility. And this is why I talk about opportunity costs a lot, because there are things that we can do that would be so much more efficient than what we're doing. And smart city technology is one way that we can keep downtown much safer, to have our buildings and our energy talking to each other. Nashville Yards is doing a really good job of building in the backbone of that, and I think that we need to expand upon that, and as a mayor, I will make that a top priority.
Jim Gingrich.
So, as Matt touched on, hospitality and tourism is an important part of our economy, and its continued health going forward should be important to all of us. But vibrant downtowns need to be live, work, play environments. And when you have companies moving out of downtown, that is an issue. It's also an issue for the people who operate those businesses. We do need to start to think about, what does tourism 2.0 look like? Because once an industry loses the support of the people that are the residents of that city, that is a problem. So we really do need to get on this issue and get on it quick. It's in everybody's interest.
Thank you. Sharon Hurt.
When people are feeling the benefit and receiving the benefit, it is different. That's why we've got to have economic prosperity on every block in every community. We have a disparity. It has been such a disproportionate amount going to one select group of individuals and not enough going to others. I live that duality every day. This is something that I will definitely make a priority to bring the balance that we must have in this city. Nashville is postured to do very well, and it needs to do very well for all Nashvillians. A rising tide lifts all boats, and we need to ensure that that happens.
Stephanie Johnson.
So one thing that worked a couple of years ago when there was a high crime rate in downtown is they closed down some streets to open it up so there wasn't so much congestion. So we might have to make a hard decision and do that. We also have 35 districts, and 5 of them have some of the highest crime rates, and downtown is in one of those. And so like I've done before, I've sat down at the table with nonprofits, neighborhood leaders, and the police as well to come up with strategic plans to actually solve crime. We can fund violence interrupters that go inside the community, identify those that are causing the most trouble, give them the support that they need so we can finally end the chaos that's happening in Nashville.
Freddie O'Connell.
Music City is supposed to be about music, not about beer and bachelorettes. And if you walk down Broadway today, there are some responsible and reputable bar owners. But when there is a street brawl happening outside, you don't know whose establishment it came from if you're just a visitor. It's important to keep people safe, but I think part of this is thinking about the type of people we're attracting. The worst thing that can happen to us is if the entertainment district becomes synonymous with downtown. A vibrant downtown with tens of thousands of people living in it is within reach. But we're watching businesses leave the area around the entertainment district. We should remind visitors that we have the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum, the National Museum of African American Music, the Ryman Auditorium, and the Nashville Symphony. That's what downtown should be, and that's who we should be trying to attract.
Alice Rolli.
Scott, this exact thing happened to one of my husband's classmates from West Point. If a Special Forces veteran can be drugged in one of our downtown bars and their entire memory of Nashville is clouded by the number of hours they spent on the phone trying to get a police report filed, that's not the kind of Nashville that people are going to want to come back and visit. And so I do think that we've got to reset the attitude that we have around crime and also around the support that we give our police. We have to stop the catch and release where right now 2/3 of our crimes committed are never cleared. And that's making criminals in our city more bold, and that's making victims feel more helpless.
Thank you. Vivian.
People come to Nashville for an entertainment experience. And there may be other reasons why they come to Nashville, because we have so many great places to be and to get in and have and enjoy. But when you're talking about downtown, we need to do what we need to do with downtown and keep it safe, yes. And as mayor, that's what I would do. I drove downtown a couple weeks ago and saw that the lighting in some of the side streets were very bad. We need to do better there. But we're talking about downtown being safe. But let's talk about all of Davidson County being safe. It was sad that I had to attend the funeral of a 4-year-old, Talia Frazier, and that wasn't downtown. That was off from downtown. We must do more to get these tools of destruction out of the hands of the youth and make sure that all of Nashville is safe.
Thank you. And Jeff, long-suffering, but being a man with the name at the end of the alphabet, you get to answer this question first.
Oh, wow.
The question is, there is an active effort to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville, a team here, understanding that an MLB team cannot play at the Sound Stadium. Would you support the effort to bring MLB here? Would you support the use of tax dollars to build a stadium for them to play in?
So I think Nashville's plate is pretty full right now, Scott. We have a lot that our city is working on, and I think that most people in Nashville want to see us invest in the Little League fields in their community before we start talking about bringing the next big league sport into town. I think the mayor's job is always to consider whatever anyone who wants to do business in the city, and I would absolutely be open to having those conversations, but I am very unlikely to support putting public tax dollars towards the construction of another stadium project in the short term. I just don't think that's where this city needs to be.
Thank you. Natisha Brooks.
Take me out to the ball game. Absolutely but not with taxpayers' dollars. This goes back to the incentives again. You want to bring your business here, invest in our city, and this is one of the ways that you can invest by opening up a discussion about baseball. It's not what I want, it's what the taxpayers want. It's what the voters want. Just like with the Titan Stadium, it should have been put to a vote. So as far as the baseball stadium, absolutely, I'm for it. How do we pay for it? It's up to you. Put it on a ballot. That's the answer.
Fran Bush.
Yeah, so it goes back to where I stand as far as Nashvillians. I absolutely will not support any more tax increases on our people. That's just out of the question. It will never happen under my watch. I love sports. I ran track. My kids play football and swim and all that great stuff, and I would love to do more. But right now we have to put priorities in place. And right now, my priority will be Nashvillians, making sure we can fix the issues that we have. All the things we have rolling through our city is what I call the tumbleweed effect. We have homelessness, we have affordable housing, we have crime and safety, we have education, we have infrastructure, traffic, our seniors, all these great things that we have to address. That will be my focus as your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Campbell.
I see the office of the mayor as a venture catalyst, not a venture capitalist, but a venture catalyst. And that means connecting opportunity with need. And I'm not necessarily averted to the idea of a baseball stadium. I don't think that taxpayers should pay for it. I do think that we haven't focused on the arts enough in Nashville. For a world-class city our size, we have wonderful arts organizations, but not enough of them, and we haven't supported them enough. And then I know that Nashvillians would like to see us focus on the people who live here. I agree with Senator Yarbro that we should focus on our Little League baseball more, and maybe a little bit less on new sports ventures.
Jim Gingrich.
I'm kind of trying to get my head wrapped around folks, and I'll be curious what everybody else says, who supported providing the largest public subsidy in the history of sport to a Titans billionaire that was already here, and are not in favor of money for a baseball stadium. The nice thing about folks that are trying to bring Major League Baseball here, and it just says so much about where we are at the city. Not only do we enthusiastically support 4 professional teams today, but we are at the top of the list for Major League Baseball. They are not talking about using public money. Not using public money is something I can get behind.
Perfect. Sharon Hurt.
So the Titan Stadium as it exists today is paid by general funds. The new stadium will not be. It will be paid by the stadium. And I think that when we bring revenue in, it is to take care of those things like our potholes, our teachers, our employees' salaries, and all of those things. Right now, I do think that we need to listen to the people. I think it's still a little bit too soon, and we need to have more community engagement and discussions around this. As a councilwoman, that's the way I feel. But as a former shortstop, and the opportunity to meet Bert Campaneris.
I hear you. I hear you. Stephanie Johnson.
So no public funding for MLB. If they need a baseball field to play in, I will direct them over to the Madison Little League field. In NASCAR, love NASCAR, bring it, but we're also not paying for that either. They can pick themselves up by the bootstraps and figure it out like the rest of us.
Freddie O'Connell.
So the Sounds had a great season last year, making it almost all the way in minor league baseball, and we just built them a brand new publicly funded facility that opened in 2015, and it was 50% cost overruns on that. I think given where we are as a city, when I got into this race, it's not surprising that a friend of mine said, we've been promised all these things, and the city just keeps building better ways to watch sports. Now, I grew up playing soccer and basketball, and I love sports, but I don't think it's the priority of the mayor to make public promises about investments in sports. If Major League Baseball wants to come here, like so many people do, I'm happy to have a conversation with them about where they locate, but we're not going to put public money into that.
Alice Rolli.
Yes, so I am in support of allowing the market to come to us with a plan for where the stadium should locate and what that would look like that does not rely on taxpayer funding. I think that too frequently the downtown crowd makes decisions before even thinking about all of the possibilities. We saw that in the decisions that were made to locate the MLS stadium at the fairgrounds before really looking at some other areas in town that could have been activated quite tremendously by such a stadium. So I'd love to see and hear from the Major League Baseball, and I would like to see that be funded through their efforts.
Vivian.
I think the rule of thumb is, how does it benefit Nashville-Davidson County? That's the rule of thumb. How does it benefit Nashville-Davidson County, the people of Nashville-Davidson County? Period. We've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means we listen twice as much as we speak. As a mayor, it is the opportunity to listen, to hear what is being offered, and to see and to hear how it's going to benefit Davidson County. Once again, we stop R&C because we didn't want to listen. We can't do that when it comes to other opportunities. But if it's going to be on the backs of taxpayers, there's no listening there. It just won't happen.
Matt Wiltshire.
So at this point in the city's history, we don't need to be providing subsidies for sports billionaires. That is a time in Nashville's history that we are long past. What we do need to be doing is encouraging investment in ourselves, building the best public education system in the country, and making sure we have safe streets. Now, having been clear on my opinion about subsidizing Major League Baseball, let me compliment the intentionality that the team is pursuing around diversity and truly making sure, as a number of folks have mentioned, that Nashvillians benefit if and when Major League Baseball comes here. I think that the team is taking the right approach and making sure that the city benefits if baseball decides to come here, and I compliment the way they're doing it.
Thank you. We've made it all the way around the horn, which means Natisha Brooks is going to get another question, first opportunity to answer this. This is very recent. The Metro Employee Benefit Board just voted against covering gender-affirming surgery and aftercare for the 24 Metro employees who identify as transgender. The current administration forwarded this proposal not once but twice. Is this something your administration will push to include in the city's benefit package?
So, you've heard me say I'm constitutionalist, conservative, Christian. Constitutionalist means the Constitution is for everybody. So as long as it's within the Constitution, Natisha is going to be for it. If it's not in the Constitution, I'm going to be against it. Going back to a previous question of transit, we must make sure that the definition is understood of transit is the ability of capitalism to get to work. Capitalism is the ability to get to work. If people can't get to work, they can't think about child care. And speaking on child care, we need to make sure that child care is opened up to not just those on the first shift, but those on the second and the third shift as well.
Fran.
On this topic, I'll have to just be very transparent. I would have to take more of a deep dive into some of the things healthcare-wise when it comes to people's bodies and just how they want to live their lives. And I don't think it would be fair for me to pass any judgment. I think for me, it's more doing more research and be able to let people decide what they want to do. I think that it becomes very controversial and it becomes very inappropriate to tell someone what to do with their bodies. Now, I will tell you, when it comes to our youth, I would like for parents to definitely get more involved in those type of things that you just mentioned. However, I just would like to kind of take a pause, as if I'm your next mayor, to be able to take more of a deep dive before making those type of decisions.
Thank you. Heidi Campbell.
It's interesting we're talking about transit, transparent, the root trans being connective. I was really appalled to see the war on our trans people that we saw at the legislature this year. That slate of hate stuff has absolutely no place in Nashville. Nashville is a city that accepts everyone, and that goes for our immigrant communities, that goes for our LGBTQ populations, that goes for our BIPOC populations, that goes for women, and that goes for everybody who is being marginalized in our state right now. My office will have a zero tolerance policy for that, and yes, of course, we will support trans health care.
Jim Gingrich.
I'm going to answer your question, but first I just have to say again, I can't get my head wrapped around folks on this stage saying they're opposed to subsidies for professional sports after just supporting the largest subsidy ever. You know, if we had just matched the second worst deal, we would not have needed tax capture zone, and all the sales taxes would have gone into the general fund, and we could have been investing that money for better schools and the like. We're going to have the same issue when we come to this NASCAR thing, where for sure, given the economics of that, we're going to have to back every dollar of those bonds. Now, I don't think anybody should be getting between anybody and their medical professional.
Thank you. Sharon Hurt.
You know, in the work that I do every day at StreetWorks, I have employees, I have clients who may be trans. The work that they put out doesn't show whether they are or are not. The heart that I hear from them every day doesn't speak to what or who they are in terms of self-identification. I absolutely would affirm individuals having the health care and surgeries or whatever it is that they need to be whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Johnson.
So I guess if we're going to be, picky about what's covered and not covered, maybe we shouldn't cover things like Viagra either. So, I think we open up a slippery slope when we start being a little bit nitpicky about stuff. So I think we should leave the health care and the professionals, and we just care.
Thank you. Freddie O'Connell.
I think sometimes it can be hard to understand what someone else is going through if you're not going through it yourself. A few years ago, I had a friend and former colleague who transitioned at about the time when I was leaving the company. But this person was a brilliant software engineer, and our employer knew it, and they wanted to make sure that healthcare options were available. And I think I'll say it this way. Mayor Cooper didn't propose this proposal just to be woke. Mayor Cooper proposed this because the job of the mayor is to attract a great and talented workforce to Metro. This was something that Metro employees were wanting, and that's why it came to the Employee Benefits Board. If that's the case when I'm mayor, yeah, we'll examine it again.
Thank you. Alice Rolli.
Yeah, so I would like to understand the Employee Benefits Board rationale and approach, because I imagine that they are asked to make very difficult decisions of balancing incredibly rare diseases of children and whether or not to cover those, or whether or not to cover aspects, as we've seen, of our retiree healthcare plans. So they were asked to manage not only the decisions for the 24 individuals for whom this would cover, but for 20 to 25,000 Metro employees and retirees across the system. So I'd like to understand their perspective and why they've denied this twice and what the cost benefit was.
Last vote was 5-4, so it was close. Vivian Wilhoite.
Yes, I too would like to know why their decision was their decision. But once I learned their reason of why they did what they did, I would still push for passing the package to include what they turned down. Look, no one asked me to marry Larry Wilhoite, and Larry Wilhoite wasn't asked by someone else to marry me. We made our choice to choose each other. When a person makes a choice about their body and about what they want to do with their body and what they're feeling as a person, that's above everyone on this earth pay grade. But to take care of them is our responsibility. A Metro employee needing that package for the one that they love or to make a transition, that is what we should be doing.
Thank you.
Supporting all employees and people in Nashville.
Thank you, Vivian. Matt Wiltshire.
Yes. Yes, I absolutely would support inclusion of gender-affirming care for Nashvillians. We should love and support each other, and we should understand what folks are going through and meet them where they are. And we should absolutely not be standing between the medical health community, which has been almost unanimous in the importance of the mental health issues that folks are facing and the need for this service for folks. So yes, to be very clear, no obfuscating. We absolutely should support the folks who work for Nashville, the folks who live in the city. We should love and support each other and not get into attacks and back and forth. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not affecting you. Like, just love your neighbor and support them for who they are.
Thank you. Jeff Yarbro.
We're talking about people who spend every day of their lives serving the people of this city, and they should get the full range of health care that they need. It's as simple as that. I have stood up against this sort of really true targeting of the LGBT community by politicians who are seeking to stoke the culture war without any regard to the collateral consequences to people out there in our city. And I think it is imperative that the next mayor make sure that people feel that they are safe, secure, welcome, and able to thrive in this city regardless of who they are, where they're from, who they love, or anything else.
That concludes the questions that we have time to get in, both the hour that we were on the air live on Fox 17 and the hour that we have been online. Please join me in giving all these candidates a hand for giving of their time and their intellect and helping us to understand who they are, people and candidates. Hopefully our viewers will feel more empowered to go to the ballot box on August the 3rd. In fact, I was talking to the candidates before we came on the air, and I said I'm always encouraging people to get out and vote, because I think the more of us that get involved in the process, the more likely we are to make a good decision. I'm encouraging all you guys to, if you're not registered to vote, you still have time. Get out there and do that. But Nashville voters head to the polls on August the 3rd, and there will very likely be a runoff on September 14th, and all these candidates are trying to get into that. Again, thank you all very much, and I'll remind our viewers and all of you to put this on your socials. This entire debate will be able to be shared from the Fox 17 Facebook page. We did Facebook Live on it. You guys can share it there, and hopefully it'll find a home on your sites. Thank you all for watching. We want to thank our hosts here at Trevecca Nazarene University. And again, thank you so much for being with us. Good night, everybody.